All right, hello, and this is the Pro Wrestling Program. My name is Kyle, and this is the Smackdown review for November 10th, 2023. Now, I will say that I am more so a Smackdown guy as opposed to Raw, because Raw is 3 hours long, and that is way too long for a weekly wrestling program where they're building towards a pay-per-view or PLE, and you have to watch 3 hours every week to be caught up on everything. Just too long. A pay-per-view or PLE can be 3 hours and should actually be, I'd say, even 3.5. I feel like 3.5 is the sweet spot where it's not too long, not too short for the combination of all these angles and storylines. Whereas 3 hours every week where you're trying to build towards that, way too long. The other thing too is that they over push the Judgment Day way too much in a feud that has been lasting for 6 months against Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Jay. It's all the same all the time. So that's the main reason why I don't really care for Raw. However, this week, I would say that Raw had a better show. They built towards the main event. The Judgment Day wasn't overused nearly as much. They didn't have a match, they didn't have a match against any of the four people that I mentioned before. It did end in the way it did for War Games, but that was a little bit different. I liked it. We had a solid main event, 3.5 stars for the world title. Lots of good stuff on Raw this week that was pushing towards Survivor Series. Having said all that, SmackDown was still a solid show. That is kind of what you would expect in this. What I liked about it is that it was building towards things that are going to be happening in the future. You could feel, okay, a lot of what was shown here is going to be stuff that they can focus on in the future and most likely at Survivor Series. So I did very much enjoy that. Or even potentially WrestleMania, depending on what they decide to do with some of these angles here and storylines going forward. So let's start it off with Rey Mysterio heading to the ring with the LWO in tow, minus Carlito. So he gets on the mic and he starts to talk about how Logan Paul beat him at Crown Jewel for the US title, but he probably only won, Rey just flat out says, "You would not have been able to beat me without the brass knucks." I like that. Rey Mysterio isn't the greatest on the mic, but if you don't go crazy into depth on a promo, he gets his point across, and the people were behind him. It made sense for what he was saying. And the best part is that it led to Carlito coming out, and he says, "Let's get down to the real reason why you lost, and that would be because of Escobar." Well done. Their whole thing is that Escobar stopped Logan's crony or whoever it was from throwing him the brass knucks, grabbed the brass knucks so that Logan couldn't grab them, and then he slowly went after the guy and left the brass knucks there. That's the reason why Logan was able to grab them again, and Escobar should have held them. Makes sense. For wrestling, this is perfect. It's so obvious for like anything else, but for wrestling purposes, this is how you kind of create a storyline. So now we've got the tension between Carlito and Escobar. Escobar decides to leave. Rey's trying to keep the peace between the family. I like it. This is essentially what the whole point of the LWO was, to kind of build up this team and introduce some of the newer characters. Obviously, Carlito came back, and I was super excited for that. We don't necessarily need to, well, it is a little bit of a reintroduction to his character for people that haven't been around for the past, that weren't watching a decade ago. So in that sense, it's building him up. It gives Rey something to do. And it's giving the shine on Escobar a lot, because I really didn't know that much about him. I didn't really care about him too much before. Zelina Vega's getting a nice platform to a degree, where she is being featured all the time. The other two guys, I don't even know their names. So, I mean, they're still jobbers to me, but maybe I don't think that in time they're going to move up the ranks, but you never know. Either way, it has built up Escobar and a reason for his character developing and changing here. So I like that. Now, Escobar leaves, Rey's trying to fix everything, and we don't have time to get to a conclusion here because Lashley's music is coming on, and he's going to be facing Carlito here. So we have the first match of the night, Lashley versus Carlito. What I liked about this is that it's two guys that left the WWE like more than a decade ago, and they're back together on SmackDown having a match together. I started really watching wrestling strongly back in 2004. So I'm very much used to Carlito, and the year after that, Lashley debuted, I believe, on SmackDown. So just to see them back again against each other made me smile quite a bit. Pretty good match too. Nothing amazing, but it was a good 6-minute match. And I would say that out of everything that we had tonight for the other matches, this was the best match. You could argue Dragon Lee versus Cedric, but I didn't think it was that incredible. I was expecting a little bit more from that other match, but this was a solid 6-minute match. What happened is that the Street Profits started to get involved. The other two LWO guys were getting attacked, and Escobar came out for the save, attacked the Street Profits, but it caused a distraction. Lashley was able to get the win, and then they beat up Carlito afterwards. Like Lashley and the Street Profits, they attacked Carlito, and Escobar just kind of hangs back and watches it, but he doesn't get involved until Ray comes out with a steel chair, cleans house, and then he's yelling at Escobar for not getting involved, saying that we're family, and he pushes him at one point, yelling at him, and then he goes to check up on Carlito to make sure that he's okay, and Escobar finally strikes Mysterio. He just goes and whacks him once with a fist, and it's enough for Ray to push back and start slapping him and pushing him away, so that it was what I liked about this was that Escobar didn't go crazy here. Zelina Vega gets involved in saying that, like, what are you doing? You're destroying the family. And then he's blaming it on Ray, and she's saying, no, it's you that started this. What I liked was that it wasn't just a full blown, I'm going to beat the crap out of Rey Mysterio and get a bunch of heat. It was a little bit different, and we can still have that down the line. We can still have Escobar slowly descend into madness, into a villain character. I like that. That's well done. I'm looking forward to where they're going to be going, because they don't necessarily have to go and make him a full-blown heel in against the LWO and Rey Mysterio just yet. He can come back next week potentially and say, I was upset. Tensions were high. Emotions were high. It was a mess. I'm sorry. And I think that Rey would accept him back, but Carlito is going to be even more not trusting him. So there's a lot that they can go with this. I'm hoping that we kind of elongate this a little bit more, because what we could have eventually is WrestleMania Rey Mysterio versus Escobar, with Carlito versus Escobar as the primer beforehand, maybe at the Elimination PLE or SmackDown leading up to it. So there's some interesting things here, and I liked this segment. Next up, we had Bayley that came out for a promo talking about damage control, not knowing that Kairi Sane. I don't know. I can't remember how to pronounce her name. So she's back, the pirate, although she doesn't have the pirate giving anymore. She was back, and she didn't know that she was going to be back. So then Sky comes out with the rest of Damage Control, including Sane, and I don't remember the other girl either. They come out and they have their promo where they say that this was our plan and we did this to strengthen Damage Control. So they're saying that, it's to make all of us, including Bayley, more strong. And then what happens is we get Bianca Belair that comes out saying that she doesn't like what Damage Control is doing. Charlotte comes out, and then Asuka comes out, and they're all going to be against Damage Control. So they set up a 3 versus 3 women's match for the main event tonight. Lots of star power here too, in terms of the women, especially on SmackDown. I mean, this is arguably the strongest women. Damage Control, your current champion with Bayley and the returning Sane, along with Bianca Belair, Charlotte, and Asuka. That's as strong as it gets in terms of the women's wrestlers on SmackDown. Might also be because they don't have that many more afterwards on SmackDown, because Raw has a ton of them. Then we had Dragon Lee versus Cedric Alexander. Nothing too special here. I would say that they had a better match from SmackDown a few weeks ago. I don't know why we're having another match here where Dragon Lee won last time and now it's a rematch. I guess they just really want to push Dragon Lee, but I think that wrestling somebody else might make a little bit more sense. But either way, at least Dragon Lee got a win. The crowd seemed to get behind him near the end of the match there as well, which was good for what they're trying to accomplish. Nothing too special for me, though. I was kind of meh during this time. Next up, we had Knight coming out. Obviously, he was going to cut a promo. This is by far your main star as well. And what's nice about this is that for the most part, they really are putting a lot of emphasis on LA Knight and having the show centered around him. He is the main star on SmackDown unless Roman is there. Perfect. He's the biggest babyface on SmackDown. He beats AJ Styles. He beats Rey Mysterio. Love it. He beats Kevin Owens. Like he's come along. I wasn't going to say he's come a long way because like he's only been around for a year. It's just, he's done so much in this past year. And he considering where he started off at the beginning, where he was in a feud with Bray Wyatt went over, and LA Knight was still able to come out of that on top in terms of being able to still get the crowd behind him because he's such a good promo. I love that. So we have him come out and talk. He talked about how he's not done with the bloodline and that he will be the champion, all that kind of fun stuff. And then he also tells Roman that he should pay Jimmy as much as he possibly can, like every dime that Roman has, because Jimmy is the only reason why Roman is still the champion. There's a lot of stuff here that I like. It's still making it seem as if Rey Mysterio would have won had Logan Paul and Escobar not messed around with the brass knucks. Same thing with Roman winning here. And the only reason is because of Jimmy. I like that. It's giving them the baby faces outs for why they lost. And then we had Grayson Waller come out because he was scheduled a match right after this with LA Knight. And I don't necessarily know how everyone feels about Grayson Waller. I feel like from what I've seen online, some people are okay with him and other people just absolutely despise him. And I think it's more so like X-Pac heat in the sense that they really don't care for him. They just want him gone, not necessarily regular heel heat, which is kind of unfortunate because I think that he's really entertaining. His attire needs to be completely changed, but as a heel that you want to lose and get punched in the face, that's what you want. I really like that he can talk as well. He is a good promo. He's one of the top 5 guys that can talk on SmackDown. I like that. I like a person that is able to hold himself, considering he's only been here for a few months on the main roster, and feel like he belongs. He doesn't look like he's at all bothered with having to cut promos. He doesn't look nervous. I will say that LA Knight looked nervous at times when he was starting to get his time to shine, but he was going through like a mega push at that point in time. And just to know that like all of a sudden, like so many people are behind you, that would get to anybody. He's clearly been able to take it at no problem, but you could see that there were times where he did flub a line here or two. Once again, perfectly normal. But Grayson Waller, I feel, is so smooth when he's on that mic. So anyway, he comes out. He says, "You think that you're really on the same level as Roman?" And he goes about that. Knight smacks him. The match starts. They throw water on him at one point in time. And then we have the match. Once again, just an okay match. I would like to see, though, a LA Knight versus Grayson Waller feud, maybe more so down the line, because I would want Waller to get a little bit more experience not experience, but wins. So he's seen more of a threat so that they could have some really nice promo battles against each other. Because I think that would work really well. So then obviously Knight wins the match. Good. That's what you need to be doing. Knight needs to be winning here much more as the weeks go on. He can lose here and there, but it should be against top people, unless it's somebody that you really want to push with shenanigans. I mean, Waller, I don't think the crowd is ready for Waller to win against LA Knight at this point in time, like at all. I think they definitely want to see Knight win a lot going forward. So I don't think this is where you would necessarily have Grayson Waller get like a roll up or Theory helps him out, something like that. But either way, Knight wins. And then afterwards, we have Kevin Owens, who has been on commentary all night because Corey Graves just had a son, I believe. So he's obviously not at SmackDown. And Kevin Owens just then starts to kind of get control of the screen to kind of go over the face of Grayson Waller when the water was dumped on him, and he's laughing and he's like doing circles and pointing at stuff. And then he shows and just like a few weeks, was it last week or the week before that, where he had done a double punch on Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. He once again circles them, does a bunch of arrows, puts happy faces on them. I enjoyed this aspect. I don't know if it's everybody's cup of tea, but I was enjoying it. I thought it was kind of funny. And what it led towards was that Grayson Waller then comes out again with Theory, and they kind of antagonize Kevin Owens, and they pour some water over his head, and they say he can't get suspended. And then Kevin Owens says, I was perfectly fine with taking the water on my head, but I think he just threw the water ball at one of you, and we're friends now, so I got to go get suspended. And he goes over and attacks them. I like this. What I'm hoping is that we're going to get potentially a Kevin Owens and LA Knight versus Grayson Waller in theory. I feel like we could build towards that, or potentially have something like that for at Survivor Series where it's Grayson Waller, Austin Theory, and Jimmy, and maybe even Solo versus a team with LA Knight and Kevin Owens, maybe AJ Styles and somebody else in that role, to have some kind of big tag match at that point in time, because I don't think that Roman is going to be at Survivor Series. I could be wrong, but he hasn't advertised at the moment. So that's something that I could see them heading towards, which I would enjoy. Because afterwards, then we had Jimmy backstage asking Knight, okay, well, you're not done with the bloodline. In that case, fine. We're going to have a match next week. And he calls Roman at some point, and it sounds like Roman didn't pick up or something. So he seemed perturbed by that. But either way, we're going to be getting Jimmy versus Knight back next week on SmackDown. I like that. Like I said, I'm hoping that we're heading towards some kind of big Survivor Series match. And if we're not getting Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. And finally, we had the 3-on-3 women's match. The main point here was there wasn't a lot of action. Bianca was getting beat on by the three women. And then eventually she went for the hot tag on Asuka, and Asuka was reaching out, pulled back, did the miss to Bianca, smacked her in the head with a kick, and then went and hugged Sane, and then she hugged Sky, and then she told Bailey to get in there, and so they're all women are hugging, and then they just started as Charlotte comes in and all that, and so they start, and Bianca starts fighting back, and then they're all beating them down, and then I think Shotzi comes out, who looks absolutely like hell, and she looks like she weighs 2 pounds. She doesn't look like a threat at all, and she looks, her new haircut, I know that, anyway, they all get beat down, and then we have all 5 women of Damage Control standing tall as they beat up all the women baby faces. I like this. It's obviously heading towards a Survivor Series match. I'm down for this, and the heels get their heat as they beat everybody down. So now it's going to be interesting to see who the, third and fourth members will be to go up again. Oh no, I guess Shotzi would be the third, to see who the fourth is, because I assume it's going to be a 4-on-4 match here. So a lot of build towards future stuff. I think that the only thing that we didn't really have a build towards was Dragon Lee versus Cedric Alexander. It was just a match to kind of put over Dragon Lee, but we're building towards Mysterio versus Escobar, potentially Carlito versus Escobar. We're building towards, don't know if the Lashley and the Street Profits, I guess we could have something there where you could have Street Profits, Lashley, and Escobar versus the LWO, right? Carlito, Mysterio, and the other 2 jobbers against, you could have that potentially at Survivor Series if they don't want to have the singles match necessarily right away. So they could be involved there. Obviously, Bailey and Damage Control, they're going to be doing their stuff with Bianca Charlotte. We're obviously getting Theory and Grayson Waller feuding with Kevin Owens, and Knight is still against the bloodline right now with Jimmy, but I could see him being interjected with the other guys as well. So overall, it was a good show, just nothing really worth watching in terms of a match. I'd say that the standouts here, if you want to check out anything, would be the highlights for the Mysterio promo with Carlito, and then seeing Escobar attack Ray, and probably the Knight promo as well. I think that those would be the standouts here for this show. So that's SmackDown from November 10th. So thank you all for watching. You have been bearded in. Beardage.